Today, I want to talk about the one thing that I would fix in any event production organization before I did anything else. You know what it is? Stay tuned. Welcome to the Intentional Success Podcast, where we unpack the top strategies, explore business trends, and drill down into best practices to help your live events production business grow and scale on purpose. I'm your host, Tom Stimson. Folks, my operations handbook is pretty darn simple. I know it's a huge process. It can be very convoluted, very labor intensive. It's the manifestation of all the work you've done or are going to do for the client. And operations are complex and detailed, and there's lots of line items. And I'm sorry, you're overthinking it, right? You're looking at the work at hand. You're looking at the individual job. You're in the restaurant prepping a complex dish, and you're making everything complex because the dish you're preparing at this moment happens to be complex. When in fact, it's not complex because you've done it before. You are using a recipe. All the ingredients are there. You just have to put them together correctly, make it look nice on the plate, and get it out of your way as quickly as possible. Working in a warehouse operation for a live event production company is really not any different. So forgive me if I will use some restaurant metaphors and some kitchen metaphors here. But, the one thing I learned about cooking, and this is from my mother, was don't start cooking dinner until you clean the kitchen, right? Don't cook dinner in a dirty kitchen. It had nothing to do with things being dirty. It had everything to do with dirty kitchens impede the process of preparing food. Dirty warehouses, and I've seen some of your warehouses, and my God, show your mother, she will straighten you out. They're a mess. But here's the mindset. Here's the mindset we need to change. Your most valuable asset is in the warehouse. So I said, my warehouse operations are pretty darn simple, right? I begin, what's the process of warehouse operations? It always begins when the truck returns from an event, from an order, from a delivery, whatever it might be. When the truck comes back and there's equipment that needs to come back into our complex, back into our inventory, get returned, that is the top priority. That is where the process starts. Everything needs to stop when this need occurs. We don't leave gear on the truck to finish up our work. That's bad planning, right? When trucks are coming back, right? You've got to make that return a priority. So your number one priority is to check in the gear on that truck. Check it in. It is back into your system. But at the same time, you can be doing the quality control that you need that will allow the equipment to return to the shelf. Nothing should go on your shelf that's not ready to go out again, period, right? We don't say, hey, we don't push it down the aisle, then we'll count the cables later. No, you open up the case, you know what's supposed to be in it. If it is not there, you replace the items, you close the case, you seal it up, you put a tie on it that says this is QC'd, and you put it back on the shelf. That is the task, and that is the number one priority. Now, since everything that's in a case is probably a kit, even though it's a piece of electronics and a power cord, right? The power cord's got to be in there. So you need to have access to extra power cords because chances are that power cord's still plugged into a power strip that's buried in another cable case somewhere. And particularly if it's a proprietary power cord that's not the same as all the thousands of others that you own, you've got to have spares because that's the cable that's going to get lost on show site, isn't it? And then we can't QC this kit and we can't put it back on the shelf and we can't get it out. So rule number 2 for warehouse operations is you need twice as much cable and accessories as you think you do so that you can rebuild kits and get gear back on the shelf. Imagine this. You have cable kits. You have your small AC cable case. It's got 15 cables in it and power strips and a few accessories. Right? If you don't have spares on the shelf, okay, you can't re-outfit that kit and make it ready to go again. If you have to open up every case that comes off the truck in order to find the cables that go in that kit, you don't have enough cables. So if checking gear is number one priority, rebuilding kits is number two priority, which means you need cables and accessories to rebuild the kits. Never waste time looking for a missing cable or accessory. Just replace it with your spares. And when you find them, they become the spares. It's pretty darn simple. Now, in my operation, I want to store my systems together. Sometimes I have audio pieces stored with video packages. This is how they go out. This is how they get stored. Stack those cases. Maybe it's not how they go on the truck, but it's easier to prep them if they are all together. Where you put them depends on your warehouse, right? Many people like to put the heavy stuff up near the front, that takes more manpower, it's easy to access. Makes perfect sense. It's fine. Often I find that heavy stuff you're putting at the front of the warehouse doesn't go out nearly as often as you think it does, and it's taking up too much space that could be used for something else, and we'll get to that. You'll see that here in a minute. So store things where they belong. Store things either in departments or in systems so you always know where to find them, right? Everything has a place. You've got to put it back so everybody knows where it goes. And if you have to label the shelves to do that, label the shelves to do that. Spoiler alert, use magnetic labels so in case you decide to change things and move them around. All right. So storing things near the systems, which allows me to do the fourth most important thing in the warehouse, which is leave the shop tidy and clean at the end of every day. Now, this sounds a little pedantic, but it's not. This is actually critical, okay? If you've ever worked in food service, you know the biggest complaint on the morning shift is that the night shift didn't clean. They didn't finish the cleaning process. They left something that should have been cleaned. And what happens is the first thing that the morning shift has to do is they've got to finish the cleaning when what they're supposed to be doing is prepping, right? The chef has arranged for all the fresh produce to be delivered that day. Everybody on the team is prepping for their particular stations, getting everything done, building the bases for their meals. And if they have to stop to clean, they lost valuable time, which might affect the prep, which might affect the meal, which might affect the customer experience. It's pretty darn simple. In your warehouse, if I have to come in the morning and move stuff out of the way to do the work that I'm starting, that's a clear lack of coordination between the prior day and the current day, right? Chances are it's the same people, so you're doing it to yourself. But if you're a larger company, a busier shop, a 7-day-a-week shop, you're probably running 2 shifts. So you're messing things up for your coworkers who may just turn around and mess things up for you. So at the end of every day, if you're the late shift, at the end of every day, everything's put away, the floor space is clear, everything's swept, mopped if that's your protocol, right? It's clean and ready for the next crew to come in and do the next day's work, right? So warehouse operation, pretty simple, right? So now, what is the most valuable asset in your warehouse? I know people are our most important asset. I read your website. Get over that. The most valuable asset in your warehouse, the whole reason you have a warehouse is not shelves, it's floor space. If you don't have enough floor space, you cannot do a healthy warehouse operation. I would rather you have open floor space and fewer shelves and have those shelves packed to the rafters as long as you have the adequate floor space. Now, what's adequate? Well, Tom, our warehouse isn't big enough. Yeah, it is. Throw away all the crap you're storing that you don't need to. Your owner has the furniture from his bachelor apartment stored up at the shelf in the back corner. Get rid of that. Call them out on it. You've got the space, but you have to make it a priority. Here's how you figure out how much space you need. You have a standard truck that you use every day. This is your standard package. Unload it. If it's a 28-foot bobtail, whatever it might be, if it's a 48-foot tractor trailer, unload it, spread it into 3 piles so you can walk around the 3 piles on all 4 sides, okay? That is how much space you need to load that truck, okay? It is not tape on the floor that is 10 feet wide by 48 feet long that says this is a trailer, okay? It is that equipment unloaded, stacked chest high so that you can move it around just like you load it into a show. It takes up way more space than just the floor space of the truck. But this now tells you part of the formula for how much space you need, okay? That's the space you need to prep one show of that size. And if that's your standard show, how many shows do you normally prep at a time? How many shows do you pack each day? That was two different questions, Tom. Well, we normally prep 3 shows at a time, but we only have 1 show leave a day. Well, why do you prep 3 shows at a time, Tom asks. Well, because it takes us 3 days to prep a show. Why does it take you 3 days to prep a show? Well, we want to make sure we're not missing anything. Why do you think you're missing something? Well, we don't know what we're missing till we prep. Why don't you know what you're missing until you prep? Just keep asking why. You're going to get to the answer. Something upstream in your process is broken. That is not a warehouse problem. It does not take you 3 days to prep a show. Okay? It should not take you 3 days to prep a show. It should take a matter of hours. Now, there are exceptions. There's huge projects. There's 10 truck shows. I get all of that. But the fact of the matter is the standard show that you prep every day, 5 times a week, 6 times a week, okay, doesn't take all day. Right? If it is taking all day, you've got another process. From a warehouse standpoint, it doesn't take all day. So how many of these spaces do you need? Maybe you need 1 of the big space, maybe 1 space the same size that could have 2 or 3 smaller orders packed in it. Maybe you want to have 1 job be able to come in while another job is going out. Great, that's good planning. Okay, if you need to do that, and I'll get to that in a second. So if your planning systems, if your equipment systems are comprehensive, in other words, we know what goes into the switcher system, we know what goes into this audio front of house system. If your QC process is accurate, if we're always good about getting everything back to where it needs to be on the shelf, ready to be used again, and then if your planning process is good, in other words, we know in advance what we're going to be short. We've looked at our inventory, we've looked at our availability, and we've thought about the flow schedule of getting shows in and out the door. If I can't finish prepping this show B until show A comes back, should I even start prepping show B until show A comes back, right? If you get your stuff right, you do not need all this extra time to prep a show. You need less time to prep. And that's what we want. We want to take the least amount of time possible to prep a show accurately. That's why we have a planning group. And that's why all of that has to be done before warehouse preps the order, starts picking the order, processing the order, right? So what I'm telling you that if you're the warehouse manager or you're the person in charge of the warehouse manager or warehouse operations, your team needs to spend more time and attention and detail to checking in equipment, doing regular and deep quality control work, making sure all your supplies are refilled so we're never having to find a cable or an adapter, okay? And you need to plan to leave at the end of the day with a completely clean shop and empty prep area, right? The alternative is a completely clean shop with a completely prepped order ready to load first thing the next morning. And only if you won't have any other returns coming in before that order comes out. So if I can wait and prep that order the next day, instead of creating a bottleneck in my precious floor space, if I can just get 1 more truckload in and then prep this show and get it loaded, then I can leave a clean warehouse at the end of the day, right? And so if you have to choose between a completely clean shop and starting a new prep, it's 4 o'clock, you want to go home, I can clean the shop, or we can start this prep order, clean the shop. Clean the shop. It is the highest and best use of your time. Putting an hour in on prepping an order instead of cleaning the shop is not the right choice, okay? Come in the next morning, the shop is clean and ready to go. The morning crew is going to be happy. It doesn't take as much time to prep an order in a clean shop. You have every advantage that you need now. And if you need extra hands to move a little bit faster, you've got a 2-truck show and you want to get 1 truck prepped and loaded so that you've got room to prep and load the 2nd truck, just plan ahead. This is your job. This is your superpower. But what makes you good at it is having your most valuable asset, which is an open floor space that you protect with your life to make sure that it is always clear if it can possibly be clear. It is always empty if it can possibly be empty, just in case that return truck shows up 2 hours early. And now you've got a place to put it. So I'll get off my high horse here, but if we quit overthinking how much detail we need to do and how long it's going to take and focus on the things that allow us to take less time consistently, you will make fewer mistakes, you'll have more fun, you'll run less overtime, and you'll be able to handle the inevitable surprises that we have much more easily and confidently. Thanks for listening.
If you want to find out more about today's episode, go to trstimson.com/podcast, where you'll find the show notes, related links, and tons of other valuable resources. If you haven't already subscribed to the Intentional Success Podcast, please do so, and I'd greatly appreciate if you would rate and review the show. Also, if you think you might be a good fit to work together or want more information about the Stimson Group, I'd love to hear from you. Visit trstimson.com for more information.